Hi, I'm Michael Tolosa. I'm your host of the Layman Podcast, and today I have a special guest from Charlotte, North Carolina. We've got Brittany Smith. Welcome, Brittany.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be on here.
Cool. We appreciate it. Before we dive into the main reason why I wanted you on the podcast, which is to talk about filmmaking, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I live in the Charlotte area, but more specifically Waxhaw, which is south of Charlotte. And the way I make an income right now is through piano teaching. So I primarily teach the first 3 days of the week, and then I try to do filmmaking the last 3 days.
Okay.
But we recently had a recital, and I do enjoy teaching a lot because I'm involved with lots of kids, and they've always got really interesting things to bring into the studio every time I see them every week.
So were you a piano player or musician prior to teaching?
Yeah, so I studied advanced classical music. I didn't go to school for music, but I did advanced classical music in high school. And I just love music. There's so much about it that is just, I just can't get enough of. So I think that plays into the filmmaking too. But the music aspect was something that's like, well, this can make a good income, so I'm just going to get started. And it turned out that I made a lot of friends in the meantime because it's a very relational type job. So
can you tell us a little bit about your history of being in the Christian faith?
Oh yeah, so I became a Christian when I was 11. I grew up in a Christian home, but didn't really understand the gospel until age 11, and have grown in my faith ever since then. Some things that have really popped out at me throughout my growth is just understanding what a biblical worldview is and growing in that, and how that influences how I approach music and how I approach filmmaking. And really the Christian life is, it spills into everything. It's not just something you do on Sunday. So when you leave church, you're not like, oh, okay, we can just leave our religion behind. It just infiltrates every part of your life because it's all encompassing. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you and I have a common, I guess, affinity for Reformed theology. Can you tell me a little bit how you got into that?
Yeah, so our family got into that when I was 13. We were going to a non-denominational church at the time, and it was funny because both my parents, they were both studying what they didn't realize was Reformed theology at the time. And they were like kind of in a state of fear, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm actually believing this, that God actually chooses those he loves. And so it was a very scary thing for them. And then they both came together and were like, hey, I'm learning this new thing. And it turned out it was the same exact thing at the same exact time. So they came together and they're like, oh, wow. And it just kind of set us on a journey for studying God's word more deeply and listening to lots of linear and exploring how much Reformed theology influences the rest of our lives, because it does. It influences so much because God is so much bigger when he is all sovereign, and you can rest more. You can rest in the fact that he's in control, and then also delight in what he's called you to, so there's just so much peace and so much excitement with that.
Cool. Are you Reformed Baptist or Presbyterian?
So yeah, I'm Presbyterian.
Okay.
So as my brother's actually a Reformed Baptist, he calls me a baby dipper.
I've never heard that.
We do things, but
yeah, I've gone back and forth. So I've, the infant baptism thing's not like a major deal with me. So I've been with Reformed Baptist and Reformed Presbyterian, PCA.
Right. And you're Presbyterian, or you Baptist?
I'm currently at the PCA, Presbyterian Church. We just became members last week here in Rock Hill, South Carolina. So
yeah, Westminster, right?
Westminster, that's right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. So
good.
Theology is something I'm super passionate about.
Yeah. Me too. I learned from R.C. Sproul back in the late 90s, mid to late 90s, listening to cassette tapes. So I kind of devoured all of his series at that time. And
he's pretty
good foundation. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool. Well, so you're a musician. You're teaching piano. At what point did you get interested in film?
Yeah, so it kind of started when I was a teenager, and I didn't really realize it, but I would get together with a bunch of friends, and we'd just use a camcorder, and we just thought it was so much fun to record these little skits and everything. Then we started getting a little bit more, not advanced, but we just were like, hey, why don't we try doing a movie where we can make someone disappear, and we'd try all these different little tricks and everything. It was so much fun. And I thoroughly enjoyed those times. And then I went to see the Chronicles of Narnia, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, and National Treasure. They were kind of, I think they came out around the same time. But I remember sitting in my seat, especially with Chronicles of Narnia, and just being like, oh man, I want to make a movie. But back then I was like 15 or whatever. And I was just like, yeah, that doesn't happen. That's only something that people do in Hollywood, and you have to have connections and all this stuff. So, but I just had this thing in me like, this is incredible. My childhood is on film and music, and it is just making me cry. And
Yeah.
So,
I had a similar experience watching the Transformers movie, but we don't need to go there.
hey, we can go anywhere.
My childhood on screen.
Yeah.
No, I get it. Chronicles of Narnia is much more inspiring film than Transformers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got excited, and then what?
Yeah. So, and at the same time, I was studying worldview because I was homeschooled, and we went through a worldview curriculum based in classical education. And I was just fascinated by how worldview forms culture and how it influences art and science and everything. So at the same time that I was kind of developing this kind of secret love for filmmaking, I also had this worldview thing going on. And as I started watching more movies, I was like, oh man, like these terrible worldviews are infiltrating our films. You see feminism, and you see humanism, and all these different things. And in my mind, I was like, how cool would it be if you had a biblical worldview that wasn't preachy? It was just a biblical worldview that displayed the beauty of that biblical worldview on film. So worldview really played a role in that. And then also the concept of beauty. A lot of Christians kind of separate truth from beauty, or like doctrine from beauty. They think, oh, the material doesn't really matter. It's, it's just, like a plate. It's just what I eat off of. Not a big deal. And then, doctrine and ministry and missions, and which are all great things. Those are all wonderful things, but those are the things that matter. Whereas the plate doesn't matter. But then as I started growing in my relationship with the Lord, really, you start realizing how beautiful He is, and how He's the creator of the universe, and how beautiful He has created everything. You look at a tree, He could have just created a pole with like metal sticks coming out of it, like a cell tower, but He didn't. He created something gorgeous that's so intricate and complex, and it means something. Like he made it because it's important, and I think we as Christians don't recognize that as much. We tend to separate beauty from our religion. But as I started learning more about the concept of beauty and how much it can speak to our souls in a different way, I'm still very much about the preaching of the word and how that's primary for the spread of the gospel. But beauty has a way of speaking to us in a very different kind of way. So that was growing inside me. But I still thought it was beyond my reach. And I thought everyone wanted to do filmmaking. Like I was like, well, doesn't everyone want to be a filmmaker? Kind of like, doesn't everyone want to be a pop singer? I don't want to be a pop singer, but
everyone wish they had the talent to do that.
Right. But then I started realizing that as I was talking with people in my like early 20s, I'm like, yeah, I want to just be like so amazing to make a movie. And I get these blank stares like, no, not really. And it's just kind of like, oh, okay, well, maybe I'm the only one who feels this way, or maybe it's just a group of us,
Yeah.
And as it started developing, I started getting this strong pull, like almost feeling like if I don't do this filmmaking, I'm going to die.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so it kind of felt more like a calling because it was just so strong. It was just in my face all the time. And every time I went to a movie, I was just like, oh man, I just feel like almost anxious because I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
So it definitely felt like a calling at some point. And then, so I started a YouTube channel because I knew nothing about filmmaking. I didn't go to film school or anything. So I was like, well, let's start a YouTube channel so I can keep myself accountable and I can teach others what I'm learning, but I have to post a video every week. So that was a really good challenge because I was able to read some books about, how to create a good story. One good book was the book Story by Robert McKee, one of my favorite books on story. And there were other aspects I explored, like lighting, and didn't explore too much about sound, but I posted some videos about music and how to compose music. And so through that YouTube channel, I learned a lot. Now I'm not posting on it anymore, but it's kind of a good stepping stone.
Yeah.
And then from there, I went to a few Christian film festivals, and I was just kind of trying to figure out where in the world do I fit in this? Who am I as a filmmaker? Am I an actress? Am I a director? Am I the sound person? Or, I was just trying to figure out where do I fit here? And I think it took 2 years of going to those festivals to finally be like, okay, I think I want to write and direct films. I really feel like that's my niche. So then I was like, well, what do I do now? Because I don't have a team. Filmmaking is not something that you can like sit down and paint a canvas, like paint mountains and trees. Filmmaking is something that you need other people with. You can't really do it on your own. You can, but not
yeah,
really.
and I imagine you had said you just assumed everyone wanted to make films, but when you actually wanted to make a film and needed help, that's probably when you realized that not everyone wants to make a film.
Right. Like, where is everybody?
Yeah.
Don't you want to be an actress? Come on.
Yeah. So finding people is a challenge. How did you overcome that?
Well, I first started praying and I was like, Lord, please show me who this is going to be and just bring them to me. And I'm like, I don't know, like, Lord, if you don't want this to happen, just shut it down and just make me content with where I'm at. But he did bring people. After the film festival, I got some people together to meet from the Charlotte area, because there were some people from the festival who lived in Charlotte. Okay. And I said, hey, let's just get together and talk about film. Just keep it simple. So we got together and all of us were like, yeah, let's make a film together. Let's do something.
Now, did you know any of these people before you went to the film festival, or did you meet them there? I
essentially met them there. I had seen them other places in my community and stuff, but I really didn't know them very well. They were just kind of distant names. But then at the film festival, it was like, oh, okay, you live in my area and you're close by. So yeah, at the film festival is what really made that connection, which is why I really encourage people to do film festivals if they're interested in filmmaking, because that's where your community comes from.
And which ones did you attend?
So the first one, which is kind of like the entry-level Christian Film Festival, is CWVFF, Christian Worldview Film Festival. Okay. So that was a really good starting point. I feel like
in Texas or something?
Used to be in Texas, and then now it's in Albany, Georgia. The Kendricks do put it on, the Kendrick brothers. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I found my people there, and then those people knew other people who were kind of close by as well. So we ended up having, the first AC and all that. And I didn't have an assistant director for the first film, but there were all these different parts that people were playing. We had a gaffer. I didn't even know what a gaffer was before. And then started that film and they're like, hey, we got a gaffer for you. I'm like, okay, sure. But what does he do?
He has tape. I know there's gaff tape. So
right.
Tape.
So that was a really good experience because everyone just drew in all the people they knew. And we had a team, and I didn't have to pay anyone because we were all just doing this together, learning together. And that's kind of the beauty of, getting together with other young people. They don't have to support a family yet.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but yeah, so that's how I found my people.
Okay. So I do have a history of almost the exact same thing. Like, so I wasn't, well, I take that back. When I was a kid, we had a VHS camcorder, my brother and cousin and I, and we made like silly films as children. So I kind of learned how to do video editing on a camcorder, etc. But I didn't like pursue that as any sort of professional kind of projects or anything until I was an adult out of college. And then, I kind of explored digital video editing, etc. And in order to learn, I did a very similar thing. Like I just like, I got to shoot something. So I started filming things that I was interested in, like roller derby and some other like things going on in the DC area. And then I just forced myself to learn how to edit that footage in using Adobe Premiere or whatever. And so I just taught myself basically.
Yeah.
And then thankfully, because I was doing that, occasionally I would have the opportunity to do video production with my profession. So they'd be like, "Oh, you do that? Wow, can you do that for us?" So it's like, sure, I can do that.
Yeah.
And then same with you. It was like I wanted to make films. I went to a Christian media conference called the Gideon something. It was held in Asheville at the time. I don't think it's there anymore, but then I was like, I went there for writing, for like fiction writing, but then I saw so much like filmmaking stuff going on, and I was like, I really want to do that. And then I get home to the DC area. I don't really know any filmmakers, so again, had to start a community called Nova Christian Film, Nova for Northern Virginia, and ended up, that was the way that we started attracting people. And then, what really made the group take off was us participating in one of the Christian time-based competitions. So we did the 168 project, which is 168 hours or 1 week to create a film, and it was like a Christian thing. So that really got people involved because it was an actual project that they could work on. And again, having volunteer talent for the most part, because people just want to participate and want to learn and want to be on a film set,
Oh yeah.
So it was really cool. So tell me about this networking group. Has it evolved since that initial project?
Yeah, so that one kind of died out because it became our team, and I don't know, it just felt like we were friends then. But then as time has gone on, I haven't been able to push out an immediate project. I'm still working on projects, but they're bigger projects. So the team is kind of dispersed a little bit. I think one of them, I do want to give a shout out to Matthew McCoskey because he's starting to do some Steadicam. He's trying to get that business drummed up. So just want to give a shout out to him. If you need a Steadicam guy, he's the guy to use.
Cool.
And so some of the people have dispersed a little bit. One guy moved to Ohio, and so I started a new networking group, which I always forget the name of because I made it way too long, but it's something to the effect of Carolina Christian Filmmakers and Actors, I think.
That's right. Carolina Christian Filmmakers and Actors Community. And that is on Facebook. I have it open right now. So I am a part of that group as well.
Yes. So I started that with another friend, and we've just been trying to get it going with different groups. And it seems like there's a lot of interest. People are wanting to come. I haven't established anything for the holiday season because it just seems like everyone's so busy. But January, I'm kind of toying with this idea of maybe going through some books together, maybe reading through a book and then talking about it, just really casual. But that way we're all learning more. Because one thing about the Christian film world is that we're lacking the expertise. Hollywood has the expertise. They know how to do all the stuff. Whereas we're just getting the ball rolling, and some people are really rolling the ball now, but it's been a real rough road for Christian filmmakers. Yeah. So I feel like I want to encourage people to become more knowledgeable about the specific skills involved. and not just the faith part of things. So
yeah, I mean, it's tough because like most of the, like you're saying, there are certain cities in the United States that have a lot of technical talent, and they all kind of congregate in these areas. So, you know, like Hollywood or Los Angeles, or closer to us, it's Atlanta. There's a lot of filmmaking going on in Atlanta, Georgia. Here in the Carolinas, it's funny because there were actually 2 Hollywood films being filmed here just recently. And I was able to be an extra in one of them. So there was one with Sydney Sweeney's boxing film was being filmed here. And that was fun to just be an extra again. Like, I haven't done that.
Oh, yeah.
Especially not with like a Hollywood production.
Right.
But that was super fun. What's that?
You can see how it's run professionally.
Yeah. I had been on I was an extra in DC when I lived there for House of Cards for a scene where I played a Chinese diplomat. I'm not Chinese. But it was fine because it was a huge like UN shot. But it's really cool to see the professional gear and just how they manage a set and how they do costuming and makeup and all that stuff. It's really fun to see behind the scenes there.
Yeah.
But also another movie with Channing Tatum was being filmed here too. I just couldn't make it to any of the days of shooting, but so Charlotte, you know, probably not as big as something like Atlanta, but there are occasionally some productions here.
Yeah. If they start fixing some of the laws to where it's more favorable for filmmakers, you'll have people just, you know, trucking in here, which can be a good or a bad thing. I know Atlanta's not really, some of the conservative areas of Atlanta is not really thrilled about all the filmmaking coming in. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a demand for Christian or conservative type films. Obviously, with Angel Studios is showing a lot of examples of movies coming out and making a ton of money. Much more than their budget. So very profitable. Hollywood just doesn't seem to want to dive into that area for some reason. So it's really left to these independent studios and independent filmmakers.
Yeah, it's interesting how that's developing because Hollywood really doesn't want a piece of it, but they are somewhat being forced to take a look because AFM, it's one of the most popular independent film festivals in the country. It's called American Film Market. And recently they've held one in Las Vegas and in Los Angeles last year. And they had a whole session last year devoted to Christian film because they were like, hey, you need to take a look at this because it's making money. Because all the wrong reasons. But Lionsgate has partnered with the Irwin brothers for like Jesus Revolution, and you know what was the other one they partnered with them on? It was recent, but anyway, they're really making a lot of headway there with Lionsgate. As I think it's a lot, you know, money's at the forefront, but there's some key people in Lionsgate who I think are definitely interested sincerely in the Christian film world. So it is starting to grow on people. I think Hollywood, you know, pretended like there wasn't an audience for either conservative or Christian film, but now they're having to face the music that actually there's a whole bunch of us out there and we are willing to go to theaters to watch these movies.
Yeah, I mean, so when the Narnia, you mentioned the Narnia films. So Disney put out the first 2 and then basically gave it up, but Fox picked it up and did the third one. But then they just stopped. And so, you know, it looked like they're making an attempt with the big budget stuff in that realm, and then it just didn't make enough money, so they stopped. But then I don't know how many years later it is now, but they're doing the Narnia Netflix series. So obviously they're trying it out again, and we'll see if they do a good job with that.
Yeah, I have no idea what to expect.
With Netflix, you never know.
Right. But the director, and she can be a good director. I don't like all her movies, but Her Little Women was really good.
Okay.
I felt like she did an excellent job with that. So,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, so I feel like Christian film is not hopeless. It does have a future, but we do need to keep focused on, what the Lord's called us to, not get all wrapped up into the glamour of Hollywood. That's one thing I really hope doesn't enter the Christian film world, is the glamour. Because I think that's what really turns things in the wrong direction.
Tell me a little bit about some of these couple films that you've created, these short films.
So the first one was 100 Steps to Becoming a Better Christian, which was kind of a spoof on legalism. So it was a little comedic 2-minute short film. I started with comedy because I figured, if I make a big mistake, at least people can laugh at it.
Okay.
But yeah, so that was the first one with my team, and that was done in one day. And honestly, how that came together, I'm not even sure, because I really didn't know what I was doing, and it just came together. So
yeah, I watched it last night and I really enjoyed it. I mean, it's very bright, it's very light, and entertaining and just fun. It's just, there's no dialogue. It's like all music, right?
Right. Because I was really afraid of dialogue as a director, because I was like, I don't know much about acting. And as a director, that's really bad that you don't know much about acting. But at that time I was like, okay, if we can just get rid of the dialogue part, I can at least focus on the emotions of the physical expressions and the motivation behind those expressions. But on the second one, I did dive into dialogue, and I think it turned out okay. So
definitely a deeper, or not a darker. It was kind of darker in the sense, just visually darker than the other one,
right?
But also the subject matter is a little bit deeper and
more serious.
More serious.
Which is interesting, because I intended for 100 Steps to be more serious at first. My first draft was very depressing because it was not a comedy. It was, I don't know, I was trying to talk about legalism, and that's very depressing. But then I was like, hey, what if we just make it into a comedy? And I think my mom mentioned it too. She's like, why don't you make it into a comedy so it's like we can all laugh at it rather than battle. There's all kinds of things with legalism that are hard to discuss.
Okay.
But anyway, so
it kind of pokes fun at the whole self-help kind of Christian books or whatever.
Right.
Might be out there.
Yeah. And how we get caught up in following a guru and just following everything that person says. And then at the end of the day, that guru has a scandal. And then we're all like, oh, is God real? And,
yeah.
Just sticking with scripture. That's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. I noticed just kind of an aside, I noticed some of the production value in that you made up your own like book covers and stuff. Like you literally like designed those and got them printed and made them look like real books and stuff.
That was the biggest challenge, because I was trying to figure out, how do we have these books? Like I've never even published a book, and turns out that Amazon has a self-publishing aspect to their services.
Yeah. So
I just created something on Canva, and then I got my sister to draw some of the book covers. She didn't draw every single one, but I think it was 2 or 3. I think it was 2 of them. So then I just put some fancy titles on them and put it on Amazon. And I had to have something inside the book. So each book has like, you don't need this, just go read your Bible. I have the copy.
100 pages of that.
Yeah. They were a lot of fun to make, but they were only like $7 each or something.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a filmmaking tip for you guys.
Yeah.
You want some props in your movie, you just print out these $7 books.
Yeah, it was great. So,
cool. So I see these kind of filmmaking stamps on some of your videos. Did you enter the 100 Steps video into the Christian Worldview Film Festival? And
yeah, and it was a finalist. It didn't. Oh no, it was a semifinalist. I forget how that works. Anyway, it was among the top 5. So that was a real surprise because I didn't feel like I was that great of a filmmaker. But yeah, and then I entered into Content, which is in Texas, and I think it got nominated for something. Honestly, I need to go back through all my nominations and start actually putting them on the pictures because I haven't kept up with that. But
okay,
yeah,
very cool. What about regrets? Did you kind of follow a similar path with that after you made that?
Yeah, so at CWFF it was nominated, and also Content it was nominated. I think, no, it didn't win any awards at Content. So that one, Regrets, is an interesting one because it's a very typical story. So I didn't really anticipate it winning any awards because I was like, it's not super original, you know. It's kind of based on, I didn't intend it to be based on Cats in the Cradle, but it definitely echoes that very, very strongly.
Yep.
Which, yeah, it was funny because I wrote the script and then started working on it. And I think it was my dad who's like, this is a lot like Cats in the Cradle. And I was like, oh, really? And I go look it up. I'm like, oh, shoot.
It's the exact plot.
I think I had heard it a long time ago. And maybe I had like memories of it that I didn't realize were, directly connected to that.
Mm-hmm.
But, and then as we were working on the film, there were so many things that the Lord did in the making of that film. But my friend Abby and I were at Home Depot, and we were stressed out because Home Depot didn't have everything we needed for the construction. Okay. And we're just like, oh my goodness. And then all of a sudden, as we're like in our peak of stress, that song starts playing in Home Depot.
No.
I'm like, it's the song. So like, okay, just keep going. We can work through this.
All right.
Hey, Dad. So how about taking a spin in my new wheels later?
Yeah, not now, Johnny. I'm busy.
Okay. What about tomorrow?
Johnny, I'm swamped with work. I won't be able to do it this weekend.
Okay, what about the next day?
Johnny, I really can't say. Well, why don't you take your mom sometime?
I've already taken her 3 times already, Dad.
You can't just take him this once. I mean, he's going off to college in a couple of days.
Mom, you okay?
Yeah, nothing to worry about. Just the pains of getting a day older.
You should really get that checked out.
I'll be fine. No need to worry.
Yeah, and the construction on that was interesting. I decided that I didn't want to do it in a regular house. I wanted to have the controlled lighting because what happened with 100 Steps is we had one day to film and the sun started setting at some point. It was in the fall. Mm-hmm. And we were losing light. So the light was changing and we made it work, but that just made me nervous because I wanted that freedom of just being able to film with the same lighting. Yeah. So for Regrets, I was like, okay, I want a set that's built. I want it to be indoors and we can darken all the windows and have these set walls. So my friend Abby and I built these set walls. There were like 10 of them. It was hard work because I couldn't store it here at my house because our garage is already just so chock full of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I had to take it to the storage unit. So every time we worked on it, we had like rent a U-Haul van and go back and forth. And wow. It was a lot of work, but it was very rewarding because we were able to control the lighting. That was huge. We had a fog machine and diffusion. It was just really great to have controlled lighting. So,
well, I mean, just even though you didn't make it for like awards or you didn't expect to have awards, it sounds like you learn so much on that shoot because you tried all these new things. Like even just having dialogue in the film was something new for you. So
Right.
obviously all the audio and audio capture and all that stuff is new. And then I could tell just the shots are, I mean, they're both great, but the regrets, I can definitely see the cinematography kind of increasing there. Maybe the equipment you're using was higher end. I don't know, but yeah, it looks, just watching it looks like you learned so many new things on that film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I was a lot more, the biggest thing about being a director is making sure that your crew sees your vision too. Because if you're just like, I don't know, just do what you want, then they're all lost and everyone's doing something different. But for regrets, I had, pictures that I was sending people like, hey, I want this lighting for that scene and I want this couch and whatever. So everyone knew exactly what to do. It wasn't like wishy-washy. I think that was the biggest difference between regrets and 100 Steps. 100 Steps was a little bit more like, okay, we're just making this up as we go along and we'll make it work. But yeah, regrets is a lot more planned out. And then I had an excellent production designer, my friend Abby. She just has an eye for everything. I think it was her that came up with the idea of having the same color shirts for each scene. So like Johnny, the child, you'll see he's always in yellow. And that's how you trace him, is he's always in yellow. He has a yellow hat, or no, it wasn't a yellow hat, it was a yellow shirt. And then like the mother has green through the whole thing. The father has grayish blue. So a lot of thought was put into the art of each scene as well. Yeah, particularly the first scene, I felt like we kind of slopped together a little bit, and that's me slopping it together. But the rest of them were very well thought out. So by my production designer.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I mean, I saw the credits. You had a lot of people working on both of these films, right?
Yeah. For regrets, I think it was somewhere around 19. And yeah, we had a makeup artist, we had the gaffer and first and second AC. Then I had an assistant director. I didn't even know the assistant director. I just put it out there into the North Carolina film sphere and got some bites for that. And that was really good to have an assistant director, because I felt like on 100 Steps, my brain was in a million different directions. But having an assistant, it was like, okay, you can take care of calling that person and, making sure they get to set and all that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. So
very grateful. Yeah.
So you started this journey about 2 years ago then?
Let's see. I would say 2 years ago, I did the short films, but the film journey probably started 4 years ago, I think, or maybe I became more decided 4 years ago. It would probably be 5 years where I was toying with it. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So based on the two films that you have in your repertoire, it looks like you're releasing something once a year. So the last one was about a year ago. So it sounds like you're due for another one.
I know. And this other one's taken forever.
Okay. So you are working on something at this time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was really trying to figure out, okay, I don't want to do short films all the time because they cost money. Even though I'm so grateful for all the film crew members who worked for free. This time I'm like, okay, I don't want to just keep throwing money away at short films. So I want to do a feature film. And I figured a documentary would probably be a good start, because it's not over the top expensive. There's ways that you can make it cheaper. And so I was trying to sort through, okay, what, well, actually I knew immediately what documentary I wanted to do. It's about spiritual abuse. So our family went through some pretty heavy spiritual abuse. And I've seen how spiritual abuse really destroys people faith-wise. And a lot of young people come out of spiritual abuse questioning God, becoming atheists, and living lives that are just really sad, honestly. And I wanted to offer hope, because the hope is really in the thing that you think was the problem. Christ is your hope. And he was painted to be the reason why this all happened. But so I have a real passion to share that hope with others. But it's been a really difficult journey because this is not a documentary that I can just interview people and get opinions, because you could get a lot of opinions that are like, yeah, don't really quite agree with that. Especially when it comes to biblical manhood and womanhood, people get really nasty with that subject. So I want to make sure that I have exactly what I want in the documentary kind of laid out in like not just a summary, but like a treatment. So I'm trying to work on the treatment right now, making sure I've got all my ducks in a row with what needs to be said, what needs to be talked about, and then choosing people who are on board with me with that, who are really wanting to stick with scripture, wanting to stick with Christ and how important the gospel is. And that's a challenge because there's so many people who are hurt from the whole situation, but there are a handful that have stuck with it.
So how do you find participants?
So I don't want to reveal too much.
Okay.
I haven't contacted this person yet. I tried a different way and someone told me, oh no, you don't contact her that way. So apparently I need to contact an agent and get connected in that way. And this is all based on whether the Lord wants it to move forward. If this one person can't do it, then I don't know that I can do the documentary, because the expenses for a film have to be, you have to make those back. So I need to make sure that it's going to get some kind of exposure, not just, this not backdoor, but like this random documentary on Prime, can't be like that. So, but if anything, maybe the Lord is just using it to get me to sort through all these subjects in my mind and to get me straightened out on some things that maybe some lies that I was believing. So that's the project I'm actively working on. But there's other projects that are kind of out here. They're not being worked on right now.
So it sounds like you've got a business mindset to these projects that you're working on. Like if you can't figure out the funding, then it's like you're not going to work on it. But
right.
Are there projects? Would you still be willing to work on projects just for the fun of it, or to learn things, or like if the community
absolutely.
wanted to do something?
Yeah, I would absolutely love to do that. I don't know that I could fund those films anymore because Regrets, I think, costs about $5,000. So it's a lot of money that goes into these short films. So I might be willing to help someone else with their film. There have been a few crew calls that have gone through, and I'm like, oh, maybe I can go be the boom operator, but didn't work out with my schedule.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm still very gung-ho about being on set. Just has to be the right situation, and I can't pay for it.
Sure. Yeah, I was the producer on a few projects, and when anything goes wrong, it's like on you. So there was a couple of things that expensive equipment went missing. Like we're on the hook. If there's an accident on set or off set, you're still kind of like on the hook. And so I decided that it wasn't. I didn't want to put my family at risk of lawsuits or anything by being a producer. So I actually stepped away from filmmaking because of that.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of red tape.
Yeah. But part of the business, I would imagine you're dealing with is, getting insurance or creating an LLC so that you're producing films, not like you're not personally liable, but the corporation could be liable. So there's a lot of things that, independent filmmakers don't necessarily think about, but, Hollywood definitely thinks about it, and they have all this kind of infrastructure set up. And part of me wonders if I should have gotten a law degree first. Right. And I could make up all the contracts and, but there's a lot of stuff involved, and
Yeah, you have to get an LLC. You have to make sure you have contracts with your crew and make sure everyone knows exactly what the agreement is. Because you just never know.
Yeah.
Most of my crew is great. I'd say the large majority were just awesome. There's no need for a contract with them, but I just want to make sure that every party knows what's going on. And the business mindset, it's a bummer, but it saves you from getting in trouble. So,
It's there for your protection.
yeah. So, but it's unfortunate that artists have to mess with the business part.
Yeah.
There's so many artists that I feel so bad for. They're just ready to blossom in the film industry, but there's that business part, and they don't have that business part.
Yeah.
And they're begging for it. They're like, is there anyone, is there a producer out there or a financier who's going to help me with this?
Yeah, I was just talking to somebody who started a film production company, and it really started because one was the filmmaker, creative, and the partner was the lawyer, kind of like administrative kind of person. So that is a great team to launch something like that.
Absolutely.
But
Yeah.
Cool. Well, so I kind of know what's next for you. You mentioned these other projects that you're working on. What do you foresee? Is there anything coming up from the community in the coming year, or anything, any filmmaking opportunities that you see outside of the ones that you're producing?
Yeah. Honestly, I see a network developing with that Facebook group. It was funny, the last meeting, it was very evident that everyone is just chomping at the bit to be on set. They're just like, we want to work, and we are ready. And so I just started praying. I'm like, hey, Lord, is there any way that I could have a warehouse, like own a warehouse where I can have these sets and I can start hiring these people, and they're already in the area. I don't need to fly them in. But I'm really starting to strongly pray for that. And if the Lord wants me to have it, he'll give it. And if he doesn't, he'll just shut the door on it. But if I could create a media company where the community can be involved, that would just be amazing.
Wow.
Give jobs to people who the Lord has gifted in certain areas. And it just pains me to see all these people who are ready to go. They are ready to be on set. They've trained, but it's hard because as Christians, we have to figure out, being in Hollywood, it is very dark. I've talked to some Hollywood people recently, specifically about business aspects of things, because they are so knowledgeable about the business aspect, way more knowledgeable than Christians are. And they've been so helpful, and I'm so grateful for those people in Hollywood, but it's so dark, just really dark. So as a Christian, it becomes a challenge to work in that environment for various reasons. It can require you to compromise. And I'm not into compromising, but I'm also not against working with the secular world. Christians need to be in the secular world, but I think it's specifically difficult in Hollywood because you've got that worldview just so saturated in. You can work for a bank and you have all these different worldviews going on, but when you get in the film industry, this is their religion, and they're promoting their religion. So it's a challenge for Christians. So Christians who are gifted and they want to be on set, they have to figure out, okay, what projects am I going to work on? This secular project is totally fine. It's a commercial, no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
But then working on a film about, I think it was a few years ago, I was going to be an extra on a film. It was called Through the Eyes of Tammy Faye. Were you aware of that one?
Yeah. With Jessica. What's her?
Yeah.
I forget her name.
Yeah, it's on. Jessica Chastain.
Chastain. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. And then I did some research.
Was that filmed here? Because I know PTL ministry was based in Fort Mill, South Carolina.
Yeah, they did film it here, and they actually asked me, which kills me. I signed up for it immediately because I was just like, okay, I need to experience. And then they contacted me and said, hey, we noticed that you have the skilled piano. Do you mind playing the part of the piano when they're singing in the choir? I'm like, oh, yeah, And then I did some more research on the director and everything. I'm like, oh, what's this story going to be about? Like, And you can't read the script as an extra. So I was like, you know what? Not feeling at peace about this. So it's like, you know what? I'm so sorry. I'm too busy. I can't do this. And you could tell, I know that feeling. You're trying to get your cast and your extras. And they were just like, oh, but we'll do this and you'll have it a camera angle and we'll put the camera on you. And I was just like, oh, I just don't know where this is going, where this particular story is going. So I don't know that I want to be a part of it. Now that's not to say that, anyone who's a Christian that went on set was sinning. I don't think so. But just for me, I was like, oh, I want to make sure I'm not promoting something that's against what honors the Lord. So anyway, so hard decisions, but I was so sad about that. And what's funny is I go to a natural doctor and he was telling me like, oh yeah, you're into filmmaking. I was just on set for Eyes of Tammy Faye. I was like, oh really? He was like, yeah, they put me at the piano and they got camera shot.
Oh, the piano. Wow. There's your replacement.
The part I was supposed to have.
Did you say that? Did you say, oh, they
Yeah,
offered that to me first, but then I declined.
exactly. I told him that. He's like, no. Like, yeah, I did.
That's interesting. Yeah, hopefully there's more films that get made here.
Yeah.
Be good just for the talent that's here that gets hired. It's just good for the independent market if these guys can make a living doing what they're doing, and not have to relocate to Atlanta or something.
Right. And good for the culture of Charlotte, because the culture of Charlotte is very much banking, and there's nothing wrong with banking, but when it's all banking, you kind of lack the warmth of how artists bring that beauty. So I feel like the culture of Charlotte could use more of the creative end to kind of balance out that left brain banker.
Yeah, I just read about like the Noda neighborhood in Charlotte. It was a big mecca for creatives, but it's since just become assimilated with the rest of the city. It just seems to have died out. But
Right. Yeah.
Well, cool. So how can people support you in your endeavors? I mean, I know you're looking for funding and stuff like that, or hey, if somebody's got a warehouse in the Charlotte area, let her know.
Totally.
But how can we be praying for you?
Yeah, that's the biggest way you can support, is just praying for the Lord's will in all these projects, and that I'll be willing to pursue the things He wants me to pursue, and that He'll bring everything needed to produce these films, the people, the knowledge, the talent, the skill, the building, the funds. There's just so much involved. But yeah, there's so much needed, and He's done it before. I prayed for the team and He just brought them. So I'm not concerned, but just lots of prayer for provision in every area of the media company. But yeah, and pray that maybe I could own a warehouse. It'd be nice to own one, or if someone has just a warehouse sitting around, it'd be great to drop in one day and just do a few, or maybe a few weeks and do a whole film. But, so definitely prayer, and then go ahead and like my YouTube channel,
which is
X14 Media on YouTube.
Okay, X14 Media.
Yeah.
The handle is X14 Media 53, but you should be able to find it by just searching X14 Media.
Right.
You can watch her 2 short films there, Regrets and 10 Steps, along with some of her other stuff.
Yeah. And if you want to invest in my films, let me know.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you talking with me today. Thanks for sharing your history of filmmaking.
Yeah.
I wish you all the best. I am part of your community now, so I'm looking forward to potentially working together on a project sometime in the future.
Yeah.
And even also, I would love to have you back just to analyze some films, because I know there's some films that just even in the secular world that Hollywood's putting out films that have, you know, spiritual kind of topics or some worldviews that are interesting to talk about from a Christian perspective. But
Yeah, totally down for that.
yeah, I think that those would be fun episodes. So
Yeah.
all right, well,
Yeah.
thank you, and have a Merry Christmas.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. All right. Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.